So in this video, I want to talk about how I actually spoke meeting Janet Jackson into existence when I was just a little kid. Let's go back to 1990. Janet Jackson was embarking on her very first tour in 1990, which was the Rhythm Nation tour. I've been a huge Janet Jackson fan since her album Control in 1986, so when she was embarking on her very first tour, I was very excited to have the opportunity to see her in person. When I was 12 years old in 1990, I was living in Nashville, Tennessee, and I was at school one day, and one of my schoolmates told me that the Rhythm Nation tour for the Nashville date had been canceled. I was heartbroken. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just 12 years old. I didn't have a car. I didn't have the means to travel elsewhere to see her. However, I found out that there was going to be a show on, I believe, March the 4th, 1990 in Louisville, Kentucky, which is a short distance from the Nashville, Tennessee area. So for some reason in my mind, at 12 years old, I started telling people at my school, I was in the 6th grade, I started telling people, I'm going to see her in Louisville, Kentucky, since the show in Nashville has been canceled. I went further than that. I said, not only am I going to see her in Louisville, Kentucky, I have backstage passes and I'm going to meet her. At the time when I said this, I kind of felt like if I said it, that somehow it would be true. I liken this to Neville Goddard when he says, I believe he said, that there was no fiction on our tongues. Even at the tender age of 12 years old, I was just a little god in the act of awakening. So I tell everybody that I'm going to see Janet in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm going to the show. I'm going to meet her. On that Friday evening after school, I remember I called a friend of mine on the phone. Her name was Tamara. I went into my bedroom. I turned on Janet Jackson's music as loud as I could get it. I mean, super loud. And I called her on the phone and I told her, I'm at the show. I'm here now. I'm at the show. I guess I kind of wanted to have proof. I was at the show so that people would believe me on Monday when I got back to school. I want to stop here and tell you, in that instance, I remember exactly where I was standing in my bedroom. I remember exactly how I felt, and the excitement in me was palatable. I think this is when the feeling was the secret for me in that moment, because I felt it real in that instance, right then at that time when I was talking to my friend on the phone. So I go back to school on that Monday, and of course everyone in school is like, well, what happened? What did she look like? What did you do? What happened? And I told them, I met her. The show was great. I had great seats. I met her after the show. She hugged me. She told me she loved me. And I said that I loved her too. And we took a picture together. And naturally, everybody's like, well, where's the picture? And I'm like, well, I've got to wait for them to send it to me. And while I'm saying this to all of my friends, I'm telling the story over and over and over and over. It was that same feeling I had when I talked to my friend Tamara on the phone and told her I was at the show. It felt so great and it felt so real. And for me at that time, I just felt like if I say this, if I do this, it's going to be true, or it's going to come true at some point in my life. I got on the school bus that day and I went home and I felt really, really badly because I felt like I've lied to everyone. Even though it felt great and it felt real, I lied to everyone. How am I ever going to live this down? What am I going to do? So let's fast forward 21 years later. A friend of mine called me on the phone in March of 2011, and he told me, hey, Janet Jackson's going on tour. It's called her Number Ones Tour. There's a contest you can enter where you can win backstage passes and you can go to her show for free. And I was planning on going to this show. However, she wasn't coming again. Listen closely to this. She wasn't coming to Nashville with this tour again, but she was going to be in Atlanta, Georgia. My friend said, well, I think you need to enter the contest to see if you can win. My friend contacted me on what I believe was a Thursday, and the concert was going to be the following Tuesday of the next week. I told him, they've probably already chosen whoever they're going to choose for the show. I'm not going to enter. I'll just buy tickets and just go and, I'll do it that way. And he was like, no, I think you really should enter the contest just to see if you can win. What do you have to lose? And I remember after I entered the contest, I thought to myself, nobody deserves this more than me. Now, mind you, I wasn't even thinking about what happened in 1990 and what I told my little school friends when I was in the 6th grade. So on a Saturday afternoon, after I'd woken up from a nap, I get an email from, it says Janet's team, and it says, you've been chosen. You've won 2 tickets and 2 backstage passes to Janet's show on March the 29th in Atlanta, Georgia at the Fox Theater. I was elated to find out this news, but it was almost as if I kind of figured that I would win and that this was going to happen. Now, mind you, this was completely free. I did not have to pay for the tickets. I did not have to pay for the backstage passes. So I call up my girl, a friend of mine, and we're heading to Atlanta to the show. Not only did we get to go to the show for free, we had great seats. We were in the orchestra pit. This was my friend's very first Janet Jackson concert. By this time, this was like maybe my 5th or 6th. So while I'm watching the show, I'm nervous because I know after the show, I'm going to meet Janet and it's going to change my life. One other thing I want to mention that I said back when I was 12 years old was this. I told my friends in school, after the Rhythm Nation show was over in Louisville, Kentucky, we had to wait for her to get ready to do the meet and greet and to meet the fans. And I said that I waited so long, I fell asleep. I don't know why I said that, but I said that all those years ago, those 21 years ago prior in 1990. Now, after this show was over in Atlanta, Georgia, I didn't fall asleep waiting for Janet, but the girl that I took with me, she fell asleep. So weird, right? We go into like a corridor of the venue after the show was over. I met Janet. I saw her face to face. She looked so beautiful. She looked like a painted doll. She looked absolutely perfect. I told her how I felt about her. I told her how much she meant to me. She told me she loved me. We hugged twice. We took a picture. I didn't realize until 2020. I didn't even remember or associate meeting her in 2011 to what I'd said in 1990. I never even put those two things together. But around Thanksgiving of 2020, I was just thinking to myself, after being introduced to Neville Goddard and all of his teachings, and I was so excited about everything after being exposed to Neville Goddard. I had listened to lectures from Abraham Hicks and lots of other people on YouTube, like probably most of us have. But when I graduated to Neville Goddard, it was just something completely different. It was a complete and total awakening of what I felt like I could do and what I could be, because I wasn't taught that there was some genie giving me anything. Neville Goddard teaches that we are God and that we are the operant power and that we make everything happen. We actually move the needle, not a genie, not a God outside of ourselves, not an external God, not anything. It's us. It's all us. Once I figured this out and associated what I did in 1990 to what happened in 2011, I literally sat on the side of my bed and cried because I'd forgotten what I'd said when I was just a little kid. Even though it took 21 years for this to be created and manifested into my life, it was still just as valuable to me. I don't care if I had met Janet when I was 63. I don't care. It would have been just as important, just as exciting. Now, when I met Janet, I was 33 years old. Now, mind you, when I was a little boy and I said I met her, I was 12. 1 plus 2 is 3. I met her 21 years later when I was 33. So 21, 2 plus 1 is 3. 33. I don't care how long it took to manifest or be created into my life. It's probably one of the single most important days of my life because I've been so inspired by Janet and her family in music. Every single thing that I said happened when I was 12 years old literally happened when I was 33 years old. Mind you, I didn't know anything about scripting or anything like that. It was just my word that created this. I want to tell everybody, please be very careful with the things that you say and that you do. There is no fiction on your tongue. None whatsoever. This was probably one of the single most exciting things that has ever happened to me in my entire life. I hope you guys enjoyed this story, and I hope you enjoy my videos. I'm very passionate about creating and manifesting everything in my life, and this is just one thing. And there are so many other stories that I want to share with you guys. As always, I thank you for listening. Bye, everybody.